Welcome, everyone. My name is Lou Nani, and we really appreciate you joining us. It's an absolutely gorgeous afternoon here in Notre Dame, Indiana. We've had just an incredible fall so far in South Bend. It's about 70 degrees. It's sunny out. I'm looking out of the fourth floor of the main building. The treetops, the colors are starting to come in. It's an idyllic setting in so many ways. I know that through this pandemic, we've all had to change our lifestyles in many ways, and it has hit some people more dramatically than others. There's been a lot of stress and anxiety, depression, isolation throughout our society, including here on campus. And I thought I'd share just a brief anecdote that last night I was asked to announce at our fourth child, he's a sophomore in high school, Gabriel's sectional soccer game. And early on, he scored a goal in the game. And I found myself over the microphone saying, and in a shocking development, goal by Gabriel Nani, which most of the people laughed at on the sideline, but then I was reprimanded by the referee that I should not be making comments like that. So if anybody is feeling bad about themselves, I'm going to take the top role as number one idiot there in being reprimanded by a referee. So hopefully my wounds will make you feel better about whatever bumps you're experiencing in your life. Things continue to go very well with the COVID-19 situation on campus. Probably for the last 10 days, we've administered more than 1,000 tests, up to 1,500 tests a day, between diagnostic tests for those who are suspected of coronavirus to surveillance testing, which is more widespread and random. And we continue to have a positivity rate that is running below 1%. That's contrary to what's going on in St. Joseph County. The cases are picking up at an alarming rate, and both hospitals are full right now, almost at capacity with COVID patients. So the backdrop is concerning. Things tend to be going very well on campus. Students have been just amazing. They want to be here, and they're taking the health protocols seriously, and the numbers show it. I know many of you have asked about Father John. How is he doing? He continues to be in isolation this week. I spoke with him yesterday. He's feeling healthy and well. We have trustee meetings this week, which are all being done virtually. So today, tomorrow, and Friday, Father John will be, managing all of those trustee meetings from his on-campus residence over at Fisher Grace Apartments, where the graduate students live for the most part. Just one other quick update is we're going to have this 10-week interterm period, as you know, from when the first semester is over, November 21st, to when the new winter or the new spring break or spring semester begins, roughly in the beginning of February. And the Murillo Center for Career Development, they're surveying students on the volume and type of programs that they're looking for, whether it's trying to educate them and prepare them better for the workforce, or if there's some virtual internships, things of that nature that they can do during the month of January. That's being worked on right now. There's a task force made up of instructional faculty, and they too are soliciting proposals right now for short, mostly online courses, as well as in-person immersive research opportunities. And that will be shared with students who want to take advantage of kind of that 3-week interval in January between semesters. It's my distinct pleasure, and I have to say I'm a little bit nervous right now, because I've had the privilege of interviewing, as many of you have followed, Father John and Marilyn Miranda and Shannon Cullinan and many of the deans and distinguished professors, but this is the first time that I get to interview a student. And this is an exceptional young woman who I've come to know here, many of us here on campus have, and it's a real honor and a privilege to present Rachel Ingal to all of you today. Rachel is a Notre Dame senior. She is currently serving as the student body president. And because of that and all the COVID-19 related task forces and so forth, she's probably come to know more administrators than she would ever care to in her lifetime at the university. She hails from Cincinnati, Ohio. She is a Brennan family scholar, and she is in the Glynn Honors Program here on campus. She's majoring in political science, in business economics, and also in international development. She also has been recently nominated by the university to be a candidate for the Rhodes Scholarship. Yes, she is that talented. Rachel, I hate to admit this to you right now, but my two children, one who's a classmate of yours and one who's a sophomore, despise you, I think, because they've heard me just gush about you and how wonderful you are in every dimension, that they're really, I think, tired, without having met you, tired of hearing about you by comparison. So really thrilled to have you be with us today. And I'd like to start out with, tell us a little bit about your early years, because you're such an old, mature woman here, but really about those years growing up in Ohio, about your family, and you know how that influenced you in your life.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for that introduction, Lou. That was very kind of you. I appreciate it. So I have been living in Ohio for the majority of my life. But my family did move around a little bit. So I grew up in both Cincinnati and Chicago. Just blessed with an incredible family. My parents have been an amazing support system to me. They've always really emphasized the value of education and always just provided me with everything I ever could have imagined. So I'm very grateful for them. I also have a younger brother. His name is Brady. He's a sophomore at Ohio State, and we're very close as well. Um, Growing up, I played sports for a while. My dad coached every team I was ever in. Such a great experience. And then I kind of found a true love for theater and performing actually in middle school. And so since then, I started doing a lot of theater productions and musicals and singing in choir, which I've brought to college with me as well. But I think I had a wonderful childhood, and I'm really grateful for everything that led me to where I am today.
And you had zero connection with Notre Dame prior to enrolling here. In fact, there may have been deep influence from another university. And so tell us a little bit about that. And how did you stumble upon Notre Dame, and ultimately, how did you discern to enroll here?
Yeah, definitely. So before my generation, like in my family, besides my uncle, we didn't really have any ties to Notre Dame. I grew up very strongly raised to be a Buckeye fan.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't that aware of Notre Dame. It wasn't necessarily on my radar to a great extent. But actually, one of my older cousins ended up coming here, and I was able to visit him, get a tour, then really started to have an open mind to the idea of coming here. I mean, it's incredible campus, it sells itself. So
Mhm.
that was sort of my first real like in-person exposure. And then my other cousin, his younger brother, ended up coming here. So he sort of started a little bit of a family tradition. And then I have their younger sister, who's my age, my cousin. We actually came here together and interviewed for our scholarships at the same time. So we got to visit the campus, stay with some students, just get a feel for what life is like at Notre Dame. And we both absolutely fell in love with it. And so now it's a little bit of a family tradition of our own that we've started this year. But Notre Dame's just been incredible. On campus, I also serve as a tour guide, which I really enjoy, but I always love selling Notre Dame to a lot of prospective students and talking about just how incredible it is. And I always like to close my tours by talking about why I picked Notre Dame. And ultimately, what really stuck out to me when I visited was just the people and the heart for service that everybody has here. I think you're surrounded by a lot of really academic, ambitious students, and they make you better in a lot of ways. But what was ultimately most compelling to me was just the fact that everybody had some sort of higher aim for social good that they were looking to use their talents for. And so um, we talk about Notre Dame being a force for good, but I think you find that in even the smallest pieces on campus. I think it's something that's really consistent and really palpable. And so I was just immediately magnetized to that love of service. And I found it to really stand true the whole time I've been here.
So have you ever stumbled or fallen down walking backwards as a tour guide?
No, I have not, but one of my favorite things to do is when I see other people giving tours, I like to yell happy birthday to them. It's just like a fun tour guide thing because then everybody on the tour suddenly is like, "Oh my gosh, happy birthday." And sometimes you hear singing and then it embarrasses them and then they'll be like, "It's not my birthday."
Oh, that's
But
a
that's
good
just
tactic. That's a good tactic. Yeah, sometimes we think that the tour guides going around here are not, they never feel too restricted by the truth, that there might be
Mhm.
stretch things a little bit here or there. What's your favorite factoid that you've learned as a tour guide?
I think my favorite has to do with the law school arch,
Uh-huh.
and why the law school arch was created. So actually, in building the law school, the marching band got upset because it would obtrude their procession to
Hmm.
on game day. And so instead of working with the architect to like find a way around that, they
Hmm.
went straight to the governor and they made it a law that no building can obtrude the procession of the Notre Dame marching band. And so that is why the law school arch was created, so that the marching band could still make their same route on the way into the stadium on game days.
That is a great story. I'm not sure as to the veracity of that, but
I tell it every time.
it's a great story, and it's very much true to the Notre Dame tradition, where some things can be a bit embellished, but as
Mhm.
long as they make a good story.
We
That's fantastic.
don't need to
So
fact check it.
yes, so tell me about your dad. Have you been able to convert him, or at least soften him a little bit from that Ohio State background, especially now with your brother there, to the ways of Notre Dame?
Yes, definitely. He's been very supportive. His whole wardrobe before I started college was entirely scarlet and gray. But we've worked in a lot of blue and gold now, which I never thought we would, considering um, growing up, my association with blue and gold was Michigan. So
Yeah.
I think that really is a testament to how much he's embraced the Fighting Irish.
That's great. Well, any daughter who doesn't have her father wrapped around, her finger, there's something wrong. So I'm sure you could convince him otherwise. So my understanding is that you sought out early on as you were making this decision a prominent Notre Dame student early in actually in your first year as a student. Who was that student, and what motivated you to do this? And tell us a little bit about that conversation. I honestly don't know the answer. So,
Yeah, I love to tell this story because I think it is such a testament to the way that Notre Dame students love to help each other and mentor each other, and everyone is just so generous with their time and energy here. But the first few weeks of my freshman year, I knew I would be interested in pursuing a path in student government. Didn't really know what that meant. I didn't do student government in high school, so it was slightly new to me. But I just thought that it would be something that I could see myself fitting into. So I reached out to our student body president at the time. Her name is Becca Blaze. And we've actually become great friends. I was just talking to her on Saturday, but I just sought out a little bit of her advice, wanted to hear what her path was, and just hear how she ended up in her position, if she liked it or not, what her future plans were. And she was just so kind to me, and she's been a mentor that I've leaned on throughout my entire Notre Dame experience. Every time I was pursuing something or had a new initiative or endeavor on my mind, I would go to her, seek counsel. She has given me great advice. She's been so supportive. And like I said, I still keep in touch with her regularly. And that is not unique to that situation. I think really anyone you reach out to at Notre Dame will always be willing to have a conversation with you. And then not only at a one isolated incident, they will continue to foster a relationship and reach out and provide you with any support that they can. So yeah, I really admire her. She's doing incredible things now, and I think she was just one of the main reasons that she taught me to like believe in myself and push
Mhm.
me to pursue doing this now. So I'm really grateful for her.
That's terrific. That's great. I believe it or not, I was way back in the day, was sophomore class president, probably the worst sophomore class president in the history of Notre Dame. But I enjoyed campaigning for the office and before I got it, and it was all because there was a guy in our dorm who was a sophomore named Mo Ruggiero, another Italian kid, this kid from Cleveland. And I thought, my God, if he could do it, maybe I could do it. And it kind of was but that influence and that passing on of
Hmm.
knowledge and wisdom is very much in the Notre Dame tradition. So that's a great story to hear. So tell us about how you chose political science, business economics, international development, and obviously this has had a big impact on you. And what are you thinking in your Rhodes application? What are you hoping to pursue as the next course of study, if that should unfold?
Yeah, well, that is the $1 million question right now, as I just try to figure out and discern what I hope to do with my future. I always have been inexplicably kind of drawn to the idea of like policy.
Mhm.
And I feel like ever since like 2008 in that presidential election, for some reason was sort of magnetized and just in awe of what was going on and playing on a national stage. And ever since then, I've really been interested in saw myself and um, pursuing policy. I think a lot of the experiences I've had um, since like watching my first presidential debates in 2008 and having zero idea what was going on. But now a lot of the interactions I've had with policy have reinforced to me how important it is. I um, interned at a refugee resettlement agency after my freshman year, and nationally, what was going on with policy surrounding refugees at the time of the travel ban, that showed me a lot about how that affects the work you do. Um, at more of like a local and a state level and working at the State Department as well. I learned a lot about how like policy set forth like really gives you a framework that you have to work within. So I think policy can be very influential. And then in my roads application, talking a lot about my mission, and I've had to do a lot of like reflecting on what I've done in my life so far and what I hope to do. And I think ultimately I'm really interested in pursuing sort of the intersection between gender issues and policy and getting
Mhm.
to work for equality on a global scale, ideally through policy. I think it really can be a tool for equity and access to education or economic empowerment. There are a lot of different avenues you can use for that. But um,
Mhm.
I just think that's where I found my passion in all of my involvements, and that's what I hope to continue on. And then in terms of the business economics, that gives me a little bit more of like a practical understanding of the way that the world works that I think is really imperative to have when you're trying to make policy. And then the international development, I'm just really interested on these issues, like I said, on a global scale. And so that has given me a great lens into how that all unfolds.
So the refugee resettlement experience that you had, did you actually go to a refugee camp? And tell us a little bit more about what you did with your internship at the State Department.
Yeah, so the Refugee Resettlement Agency was actually in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
And so there we received refugees from other countries and helped them get accustomed to life in the United States. It was a really, really rewarding experience. I taught different refugees English, help them prepare for the citizenship test and just general life in America. We would transport them to doctors' appointments and to job interviews and
Mhm.
English classes. And we would help them like matriculate. And there were just a lot of rewarding interactions that I got to have and a lot of amazing relationships that
Mhm.
I formed out of that experience. So I was really grateful for that opportunity. And it taught me a
Mhm.
lot about migration policy in general. And I was actually able to the following year go to Valencia, Spain, and work with a group of women refugees there, and sort of get a comparative view of what refugee resettlement looks like in the United States versus in Europe. And they're very different. So it opened my eyes to a lot of that. And
Mhm.
then last fall, I was in the Notre Dame Washington program. And through that program, you get to intern full time at somewhere in DC. And then you take night classes so that you can still get your full course load, but really get like a substantive internship experience. And
Mhm.
so there, I worked at the State Department, and I specifically served in the Office of Global Women's Issues. And I think that was really where I found that like working on gender equality and policy would sort of be like my passion project for life.
Mhm.
And we got to work on a lot of girls' education, women's economic empowerment. We worked on helping out mitigate gender-based violence, um, and then like women in politics. So there are a lot of different issues that we got to touch on, and I felt like that was the first time I wasn't just reading about like different theories on a page or hearing about case studies, but I was actually getting to have a hand and like working on policy and working on programming and all the messaging that comes out of like our really high level offices of government. So that was just a really cool opportunity to me and kind of just reinforce that this is something that I would want to continue to work on.
So I guess a better question would have been, what haven't you done in your first 3.5 years at Notre Dame? This is why my children don't like you. Totally joking. They don't. I haven't been, been that bad with them in terms of holding you too high.
Oh,
But
no.
but you and your running mate were in all getting back to this kind of gender equity theme,
Mhm.
an all women ticket, and you're the third all women ticket to be elected president and vice president of the Notre Dame student body. You went up against, a bunch of male tickets as well.
Yeah.
Tell me, what dynamics did you experience? What did you learn from that? How important a dynamic is that today?
Yeah, for sure. Um, this is something that was a really formative experience for me going through that campaign and now just getting a chance to hold this office. Being only the third all-female ticket has been an
Mhm.
honor to me and something that I'm really glad that we're getting the chance to represent. I'm
Mhm.
only actually the ninth female student body president in the history of Notre Dame as well. So
Mhm.
working up to double digits, but once again, just excited to be some representation there. Sarah, my vice president, is incredible,
Mhm.
and I picked her just because I thought we really aligned in terms of our vision and our values. And she had some different experiences than I had on campus, and they were less traditionally student government. But I thought our skill sets would be really complementary. And she's such a diligent worker, very smart person, and
Mhm.
just like has a really good heart. So working with her has been incredible, and I entirely just picked her off of merit. But then it's been really exciting to get to make gender issues and like elevate the idea of like women in leadership throughout our term as well. Our
Mhm.
first presidential initiative, we actually created what's called the Women's Leadership Forum. So we
Mhm.
wanted to have an opportunity, just an understanding that there haven't been a lot of women leaders historically on
Mhm.
campus, really wanting to elevate this idea and talk about it with each other and sort of build a network of all the women identifying leaders in the student union so that we could one just have relationships with each other, talk about what it is that we're going through, our experiences in leadership,
Mhm.
and sort of just have a great support network. But we also like to bring in women who are serving in leadership positions from across campus, like faculty or staff.
Mhm.
um, and get to bring in some really accomplished and intelligent and powerful women who can speak with us and give us their wisdom and their advice.
Mhm.
So that's been an exciting initiative that we've gotten to kind of take on, and I think it's been a success so far, and we've been grateful to have this opportunity to get to promote and call attention to these kind of issues.
Well, you and Sarah have offered brilliant leadership by all accounts. So many administrators who have been here many years and have seen many presidents and vice presidents come and go, and we've had many excellent ones over the years. But the two of you have really stood out, and you've done a
Thank
phenomenal
you.
job. Tell us a little bit about you. Are a Brennan Family Scholar, and you are also part of the Glynn Family Honors Program. What has that meant in both attracting you to Notre Dame, and how has that enriched your experience here?
I am endlessly grateful to both the Brennan family and the Glenn family for making my Notre Dame experience what it is. In terms of the Brennan family, they've been so generous and they partially made my education here possible. So I couldn't be more grateful for that. And we've had some great opportunities as a cohort to be able to have brunch with them every year and get to meet their entire family. And they're just some incredibly kind hearted people, very, very generous. And so that's been a great opportunity because being in the scholars program has provided me with an incredible network of a lot of really ambitious students who are doing incredible things. I just love getting the chance to know all of these people, like my peers, who I think are just amazing. And we were able to have a class our freshman year called ethical leadership, and that really allowed us all to connect with each other.
Mhm.
And I've just been in awe to watch them all develop throughout their time at Notre Dame and see what it is that they're going on to and what it is that they've done so far. And then the Glenn Family Honors Program also provided me with an incredible network of people. Um, Through the Glenn program, we take, especially our first year here, we take a lot of classes specifically through the program.
Mhm.
And that allowed me to form some really tight connections right off the bat, just because I had so many classes with the same small group of students.
Mhm.
And then through the Glenn program, I also will be completing a thesis. And I was given the opportunity to research that thesis more this summer through a grant that they provided me so that I could just solely focus my time to researching that. So both of the experiences have been amazing. They both have just been absolutely formative to my Notre Dame experience. And
Mhm.
I think they were also really attractive to me in terms of deciding to come to Notre Dame because they've really, I think, just elevated all of my opportunities. So I'm very grateful.
Mhm. So you run for student body president really in last winter, and in retrospect, you, I'm sure, run somewhat naively to kind of be a regular student body president, and then coronavirus hits, the
Mhm.
pandemic, you know, disrupts everything we seem to know in this world, and you come in as president of the student body in a very different time with a new set of challenges. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you've adapted to that? How has it changed the work that you've done as the most visible student leader on campus?
Well, it certainly hasn't been boring, Lou. I will say that every day gives us some kind of new challenge to be working with. I've been learning a lot though about what leadership means
Mhm.
and how to be a leader in practice. The biggest thing that's really been characterizing our year has been flexibility and adaptability. Coming into this, we had spent hours upon hours creating a platform that was sourced from a lot of student leaders and student opinions and advice, and just created what we thought were the most important things that we were hoping to work on in office. And it absolutely 180'd in
Mhm.
terms of we created that platform in I think January or February. And then by the time we took office, we were completely online. So
Mhm.
we've just had to understand that, maybe our original intentions are not the most important things right now. So
Mhm.
a big lesson has been prioritization. There are a lot of pieces of our platform that just don't apply anymore. Stuff about like
Right.
transportation or inter-dorm community, and we have to understand that because of different health protocol now, there are more important things. But in some sense, I've been um, grateful that this year I think we've had the opportunity more than in other years to be able to have a really robust dialogue with the administration. And I
Mhm.
think some of the things that have been innovated this year will be continued on into the
Mhm.
future. And so I think it's definitely been challenging, and we have to take everything day by day, but I think there have been a lot of really unique opportunities that have come out of this. We together serve on this off campus like student advisory group, and I think that's been an incredible fruit that has come out of this situation, and I hope will be continued on into the future. And we're really finding new ways to communicate all of this through Zoom, or
Mhm.
seeking out different groups who
Yeah.
maybe are more affected than this by others. And I think we've started to consider new things, and we're going to think differently forever. But I think it's been an amazing opportunity to really get to be in a position of leadership at this time. And I know in any interview question in the future, if they ask me about a time I had to deal with a challenge, I think this is a perfect one. So if anything, I'm walking away with that.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, let me ask you even a bit more difficult question, and that is to kind of assess how you think the student body is doing. And I know that this is it's a big question, but when you look at the cloud that we are under with the pandemic, with the economic dislocation, with the racial unrest that enveloped this nation and world, and you see how this has impacted students here on campus, and particularly the undergraduate students that you represent. Um, Give us an assessment of the what you see, the stress, the anxiety, the depression among students, and also then point to us, what do you see as the silver linings in that cloud? Where do you see hope? What are some of the breakthroughs that are helping to keep your spirits up as we move forward?
Absolutely. I mean, it has been quite challenging. I think, especially as a senior this year, this is not exactly the senior year that I imagined, but
Mhm.
I think the Notre Dame student body has proven to be very resilient. I think people are still in good spirits about just having the opportunity to come back, and it has been a process to sort of change my understanding and my expectations, and know this maybe isn't the senior year that I had envisioned when I stepped foot on this campus, but
Mhm.
I still am provided with a lot of opportunity and experiences. And so I'm just trying to make memories with what I've got. But I think the general student sentiment, it is difficult now. In full transparency, this year has been challenging, especially I think as we hit midterms, because
Mhm.
we don't get the usual week-long fall break that we're accustomed to. And so not really having like a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of workload. I think a lot of students are experiencing burnout right now, just
Mhm.
academically, with feeling like once midterms start, they never really end until finals
Right.
come around. So,
And I think in that off-campus committee that we share, the announcement of the next semester came
mhm,
right during midterms, and we said there's no spring break and there's no Easter break. And we were in the same conference call together where many of the students said, I feel like, we've been conditioned to the rhythm of an academic calendar where
yeah.
we would work really hard, then have a break. And now all of a sudden there's no breaks. And that I think just adds to the point you're making.
Yeah, so I think that does force us to think more creatively about ways that we can practice self-care and take care of ourselves. I do think that at least my professors have been pretty flexible in this time, and have advocated for us to make sure that our mental health is good, and communicate if we ever need a break or some space, or just to take a step back. and so I do think silver linings, like you were talking about, I think this discussion about mental health has risen to the forefront more than it has in the past. And it is
Mhm,
something that we should continue to emphasize and check in on. Um, but really this year, just understanding that mental health looks so different. And for me, I usually find that I work really hard and then I get to like re-energize myself or fill up with social time, and even social time looks so different this year.
mhm,
So really having to be more creative and have these tough conversations about mental health, but
mhm,
also think about new ways to approach it that maybe look different than just like going out or like having a party with your friends, and actually think about some more like root causes to the issue and how we can help it there.
So tell us, how do you relax? How do you socialize? Not just you personally, but your friend group. I mean, how have you adapted along those lines?
I think the university has put forth a tremendous amount of effort into making social engagement possible in new innovative ways, and new kinds of programming. I think the senior social that we had last week was a really exciting opportunity for seniors to get together and see students who maybe they don't run into all the time, especially as an off-campus student, but gave us a time to gather in community, and really feel like we're all here again. And
Mhm,
so that was really exciting. I think what's been going on in terms of library lawn and the way they re-envisioned South Quad with all of the lights and new gathering spaces, and just putting together like lots of different
mhm,
entertainment in terms of like showing movies or having concerts. That's been awesome, an awesome way. And then just the way that they've been able to figure out football in a safe way, I think everyone's very grateful for. I know I'm
mhm,
really looking forward to this weekend and getting another game. That's just such a nice break from
mhm,
all of the schoolwork and everything. And so that's definitely what's getting me through the week currently.
mhm.
But I do think that there has been quite a concerted effort for programming and for finding new opportunities for us to come together.
So you've had a lot of access to Father John already, but let's just say hypothetically, you get to sit down with him toward the end of your senior year, and you get to give him some recommendations, one or two that come to mind, on how we can improve the student experience at Notre Dame. What are some of the things that would come top of mind for you that you would share with him?
That's a great question. I think it depends if we're still living in the age of coronavirus or not,
Yeah.
which I would hope not. But that has really been all that I've known in terms of um, leadership, and that's really
Mhm,
characterized the way that I see recommendations. I think for one, um, the growth that we've seen in testing has been tremendous. Like you were saying, we're really starting to get good numbers in terms of how
mhm,
many tests we're processing a day. I think you can never have too much testing. So
mhm,
that would be the first thing I would say, in terms of just making this campus feel very safe
mhm,
and giving us
mhm,
opportunities to socialize. Part of it, this off campus initiative that really he started and wrote the charge on, I think I would say, even expanding that. I know that
mhm,
for a while there's been this divide between on and off campus students. And I think that this has been an incredible initiative, and I think it should be continued on into the future. Um, so I would definitely recommend that as well. And something that has been new, I think, this year has been this appetite for like student advocacy. I'm seeing a lot, I think, really kickstarted by this summer.
mhm,
Um, but in the whole like racial justice movement that we've been having that's swept the entire nation, I think we're
mhm,
seeing a lot of students have this sort of hunger to speak up and to
mhm,
really play more of an active role. So I think just capitalizing on that,
mhm.
and really like listening to student leaders and all of these like student advocacy groups who have a lot to say. I think that's been something that's been exciting for us in student government to capitalize upon, and I think it could definitely be used for larger benefit.
I said to you at the outset, you've been through so many interviews and you've been given so many public presentations that you almost look too relaxed. So I said that I have to throw out some tough questions. So I want to end with a tough one. So we're taking a look at Rachel Ingal, 10 years after graduation. Where are you? What are you doing? Where would you hope to be at that point? I know this is a terribly difficult question, but I don't want you to look too relaxed here. We got to, keep you on edge.
Well, I certainly wish that I could predict the future,
Where
especially
would you
now
like to be? Yeah.
especially now. I think this is something that I've had to engage in a lot of discernment on, especially as I graduate and sort of enter a job market or apply for different fellowships or graduate programs. But I think I really loved being in DC. So if I were in DC, that would make me quite happy.
Mhm.
But any chance that I have to engage in the issues that I'm passionate about, like I talked
Mhm.
about before. I couldn't tell you what exact capacity that would be, whether it be something more grassroots or nonprofit or policy oriented or think tank or
Mhm.
I don't know. There are a lot of different, there's an
Right.
abundance of opportunities out there. But I think I'm a strong believer that you're going to be most successful in what you're most passionate about. So if I'm just having the opportunity to be furthering the issues that I really care about, um, I think I would be satisfied with that.
Good. That's a good answer. That's great. See, it's hard to get you in a tough situation. So many people have talked about, you've been precocious as a Notre Dame senior, the maturity and the charisma, with which you carry yourself. Any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share with members of the Notre Dame family, either about what you've experienced or what your hopes might be for the Notre Dame family?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that I've seen in leading in this time has just been the importance of empathy, and I think Notre Dame students do that really well, but it's just so easy to get caught up in everything that's going on in this world right now, and get discouraged by that. But
Mm.
I think just maintaining empathy in all of our interactions is the key to getting through this together. Notre Dame really has a community like no other, and I think we cling to hope very well, and we have good guiding morals and values, and I think just holding on to that and what we know and allowing that to get us through this time together, I think is how we're going to make it to the other side of this and be better from it as well. So I just hope that we would all remember that in all of our interactions, and um, I think that's the key.
I think that's a great way to close the interview, and I think those are, wonderful words of pearls of wisdom, words of advice, because so much, and we see it all the time here. Things are so politically charged, emotional, raw, divisive, and everybody kinds of gets is entrenched right now in their positions, and they're at battle. And there is not a lot of empathy. There is not a lot of trying to find a way to yes to collaboration. So I think that's an excellent point that we can all heed and do a little bit better with as we go forward. I want to thank you, Rachel. You've been and continue to be an amazing leader and an inspiration to many of us who are much older than you. And we're grateful for your friendship, for your leadership, and we feel incredibly bullish about your future and the impact that you're going to make on many lives, however that takes shape. So thanks again, and we look forward to working with you, throughout the rest of your senior year and beyond.
Thank
So
you, Lou. I
thanks.
really appreciate you having me here today. I've been grateful for the opportunity to chat once again.
That's terrific. Well, next week I want to invite everybody to join us. We're going to be joined by the new dean of the College of Engineering, who came to us from Columbia University. You'll be delighted to meet her. Her name is Patricia Culligan, and we're excited. We'll be back at the noon slot on next Wednesday. The reason why we couldn't do noon today is because Rachel had class, and class comes first. So I think the dean has a little bit more flexibility when it comes to that. So we'll be with you next week. And thanks again, Rachel. We always close these sessions by inviting everybody, wherever they are, to join us with a prayer to whom this university is named and founded, and who watches over us every day. So please all join in a Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Take care. God bless. Go Irish.